Don't let go. The words were barely louder than a breath, but somehow they silenced a ballroom filled with 200 of Chicago's most powerful people. 30 seconds earlier, Ava Richardson had been standing beneath a wall of golden light. Every inch the billionaire CEO the newspapers loved to photograph. 28, composed, brilliant, and seemingly impossible to shake. Crystal glasses gleamed beneath chandeliers. A string quartet played softly near the windows. Beyond the glass, Chicago glittered 40 floors below like another universe. Tonight isn't simply about expansion, Ava told the crowd. It's about building something that lasts. Applause rose. Ava smiled. Then the room tilted. She stopped, blinked once. The words on the teleprompter blurred. "Ms. Richardson?" someone whispered. "Ava, get her assistant." She tried to take one step backward, but her balance disappeared. Near the side of the stage, Ryan Mitchell heard the sudden gasp before he understood what was happening. He had been kneeling beside an open electrical panel, checking the lighting problem that had nearly delayed the gala. His dark brown hair was slightly disheveled from a 12-hour shift, his sleeves rolled over strong forearms, his contractor badge hanging crooked against a plain work shirt. He looked up. Ava was falling. Ryan moved before anyone else did. 3 quick strides carried him across the polished floor, and he caught her securely before she reached the stage steps. The quartet stopped. A champagne glass clicked against a table. Then came silence. "Ma'am," Ryan said quietly. Ava's eyes opened. For one strange second, she saw none of the investors, executives, cameras, or security officers rushing toward her. She saw only an unfamiliar man with steady brown eyes. "I'm fine," she whispered. "You almost fell." "I said I'm fine." Ryan gave the faintest nod. "Okay." He didn't argue. He didn't stare. He simply held her steady until her breathing slowed. That calm unsettled her more than panic would have. People always wanted something from Ava Richardson: a signature, an introduction, an investment, a photograph. This stranger seemed concerned only with whether she could stand. "Medical team's coming," someone called. "Give her room." Ryan glanced toward the approaching security staff. "They've got you now." He began carefully releasing his hold. Ava suddenly felt the distance opening between them, and something inside her reacted before pride could stop it. Her fingers closed around the fabric of his shirt. Ryan froze. So did everyone watching. Ava looked at him, her polished public mask gone for one unguarded heartbeat. "Don't let go." Ryan studied her face and saw something no magazine cover had ever captured. Not weakness, not helplessness. Fear. Quiet, carefully hidden fear. His voice softened. "I won't." And beneath the chandeliers, surrounded by people who knew exactly how much Ava Richardson was worth, the only man she trusted enough to hold on to was the one person in the room who had no idea who she was. Ryan kept his promise only until the medical team reached them. The moment Ava could stand safely, he stepped back, gave her a quiet nod, and disappeared behind the service doors before anyone thought to ask his name. By midnight, the ballroom had emptied, the chandeliers had dimmed, and 40 floors below, Chicago traffic moved through the cold streets as if nothing unusual had happened. Ryan drove home in a 10-year-old pickup truck with a heater that worked whenever it felt generous. He stopped at a red light, glanced at the contractor badge lying beside his coffee cup, and thought about the fear he had seen in Ava's eyes. He did not know her story. He did not need to. At 12:37 in the morning, Ryan unlocked the door of his small apartment on the northwest side and found 7-year-old Emily asleep beneath a blanket on the couch. Mrs. Parker from across the hall sat nearby reading a paperback. "Long night?" she asked. "Long enough." "Your little girl tried waiting up." Ryan smiled. "She always does." He thanked Mrs. Parker, carried Emily carefully to bed, and tucked the blanket beneath her chin. His world was small by the standards of the people he had spent the evening working around. Rent, school lunches, electrical jobs, grocery lists taped to the refrigerator. But it was his world, and he protected its peace with quiet dignity. Across the city, Ava sat awake in a private hospital room while 3 executives argued outside her door. "We need a statement. The photographs are already circulating." Who was the contractor? Ava looked toward them. Enough. Silence followed immediately. Her physician had explained that exhaustion, dehydration, and weeks of inadequate rest had likely caused the episode. Ava had nodded through every word, but her mind kept returning to one detail. The stranger had walked away. Find him, she said. Her chief of staff, Daniel Mercer, hesitated. The man from the ballroom? Yes. Security is already reviewing the footage. I do not want security reviewing him. I want his name. By 8 the next morning, a thin folder rested on Ava's desk at Richardson Hospitality Group headquarters. Ryan Mitchell, 32 years old, licensed electrician, independent maintenance contractor, single father, one daughter, Emily, age 7. No lawsuits, no public profile, no connection to Richardson Hospitality beyond temporary facilities work. Daniel stood across from her desk. There is something else. Ava looked up. What? Facilities management wants his contract terminated. Her expression hardened. Why? They believe physical contact with the chief executive created an unacceptable situation in front of investors. Ava stared at him. He stopped me from falling. I understand. Apparently they do not. She closed the folder softly. Nobody fires him. Daniel nodded, but Ava was already looking through the glass wall toward the city. Somewhere below, Ryan Mitchell was probably repairing another light, raising his daughter, and continuing a life that had nothing to do with hers. For reasons Ava could not yet explain, that bothered her. She looked at the folder again. Ask him to come upstairs. Daniel paused. Should I tell him why? Ava remembered steady brown eyes, a work shirt beneath her fingers, and a voice that had asked for nothing. No, she said quietly. I want to see what he asks for. Ryan expected the 46th floor to feel different. It did. The elevator opened into a world of quiet marble, soft gray carpet, and windows stretching from floor to ceiling, with Chicago spread beneath the morning clouds. His work boots sounded strangely loud as Daniel Mercer led him toward Ava's office. Ms. Richardson will see you alone. Ryan glanced at him. Am I in trouble? Daniel almost smiled. That depends on what you consider trouble. Ava stood beside the window when Ryan entered. No evening gown. No crowd. No carefully arranged stage lights. She wore a simple cream blouse and dark slacks, her blonde hair pulled back loosely. For the first time, Ryan understood that she was younger than the authority surrounding her made her appear. Mr. Mitchell. Ryan is fine. Then Ava is fine. He nodded. Silence settled between them. Ava returned to her desk and opened a folder. You know who I am now. The elevator has your last name engraved inside it. I figured it out. That earned the smallest smile. You could have spoken to reporters last night. About what? About me. Ryan shrugged. You got dizzy. I caught you. That is not much of a story. Ava studied him. People have sold less for more. Then you have met the wrong people. The answer landed gently, but something in her expression changed. She closed the folder. What do you want, Ryan? Right now? Yes. To know whether you are feeling better. Ava blinked. That is all. That is why you called me up here, is it not? She had spent years negotiating acquisitions worth hundreds of millions of dollars, reading hesitation in voices and ambition behind smiles. Yet Ryan Mitchell stood before her asking nothing. Then he noticed the silver object beside her family photograph. A small compass, old enough that its edges had gone dull. Ryan stopped breathing for half a second. Ava noticed. Something wrong. No, his answer came too quickly. His eyes returned to the compass. On its lid was a tiny engraved pine tree above 3 letters. RMC. Ava touched it almost unconsciously. It belonged to my father. Ryan's jaw tightened. Richard Richardson? Richard Cole Richardson. Ryan looked toward the windows. I knew a Richard Cole once. Ava straightened. You knew my father? I do not know if it was the same man. Where? Ryan hesitated. Years ago. Before Emily. Before this job. Ava waited, but he offered nothing more. Then came the twist neither expected. Daniel entered without knocking, his face unusually tense. Ava, facilities just called. Ryan was not scheduled at the gala last night. The room went still. Ryan frowned. What? Daniel placed a printed work order on the desk. Your assignment ended at 6 o'clock. Another electrician was scheduled for the ballroom. Ava slowly turned toward Ryan. Then why were you there? Ryan reached into his jacket and removed a folded service ticket. Because somebody slipped this under my toolbox at 5:48. Ava opened it. The request looked ordinary except for one handwritten line at the bottom. Check ballroom, west panel personally. RM. Ava's face lost its color. Ryan pointed toward the handwriting. I thought those were my initials. Ava stared at the note. They are not. She opened a locked drawer and removed an old birthday card. The handwriting matched. Ryan looked from the card to the service ticket. Who wrote that? Ava's voice became almost a whisper. My father. Ryan said nothing. Ava looked at the date on the card, then back at the impossible message that had placed Ryan exactly where she would need him. Ryan, she said, my father died 8 years ago. For several seconds, neither of them moved. The quiet office suddenly felt colder, as though the impossible had entered through the glass walls and taken a seat between them. Ava held the service ticket beside the old birthday card, comparing the careful curve of each letter. My father wrote like this his entire life, she said. Ryan studied the paper again. Then someone copied him. Why? That is the better question. Daniel reached for the ticket. I can have security trace where this came from. Ava shook her head. Not yet. She looked at Ryan. You said you knew a Richard Cole. Ryan's eyes lowered toward the silver compass. About 9 years ago, I was doing electrical work at a community center on the south side. An older man started coming around every Thursday. Plain jacket, old coffee thermos, drove a Ford pickup with more rust than paint. Ava almost smiled through her confusion. My father owned 12 cars. Apparently, he liked the 13th one better. Did he tell you who he was? Never. Ryan paused. He told me his name was Richard Cole. Ava sank slowly into her chair. The billionaire who had built hotels across America had apparently spent Thursdays being someone his own daughter had never known. What did you talk about? Work. Family. Second chances. Ryan's voice softened. Mostly family. Ava looked away. Before she could ask more, Ryan's phone vibrated. He checked the screen. I need to get downstairs. Something happened? Emily's school called. Her after-school program closed early because of a heating problem. Mrs. Parker cannot pick her up today. Ava stood. Bring her here. Ryan stared at her. Here. You saved my evening. I think the company can survive one 7-year-old for an hour. 40 minutes later, Emily Mitchell sat in a quiet employee lounge on the 45th floor, swinging her sneakers beneath a chair while Ryan finished an emergency repair. Ava found her drawing Chicago's skyline with purple buildings and an orange lake. You must be Emily. The girl looked up. You must be the lady my dad caught. Ava blinked, then laughed before she could stop herself. That is one way to describe me. Emily studied her carefully. Are you really a billionaire? Apparently. Do billionaires get lonely? Ava's smile faded. Children had a strange grace for walking through doors adults spent years keeping locked. Sometimes, she admitted. Emily nodded as if this confirmed something important. Daddy gets lonely too. He just fixes things when he does. Ava sat beside her. On the table lay Emily's small canvas backpack, covered with stitched stars and faded patches. One patch stopped Ava cold. A tiny green pine tree above 3 letters. RMC. The same symbol engraved on her father's compass. Emily, Ava whispered. Where did you get that? Emily glanced at the patch. My dad gave it to me. He said an old friend gave it to him before I was born. Ryan appeared in the doorway at that exact moment. He saw Ava touching the patch, and the warmth left his face. Emily, sweetheart, pack your things. Ava rose. Ryan, what did my father give you? Ava, please. Ryan looked at Emily, then at the compass hanging from Ava's hand. His voice was quiet when he finally answered. Not money. Not a job. He gave me one promise to keep. Ava took a step closer. What promise? Ryan held her gaze for a long moment. One I was told never to explain unless the right person asked the right question. Ava's breathing slowed. And who is the right person? Ryan picked up Emily's coat. That is the part Richard said I would recognize when the time came. By noon the next day, somebody had already decided what Ryan Mitchell was supposed to be. The photographs from the gala had spread across business sites and social media, showing Ava in his arms beneath the chandeliers, his contractor badge visible against his shirt. By lunchtime, another photograph appeared. Ava sitting beside Emily in the employee lounge. 2 moments became a story, and the story became an accusation. He planned it. One executive said quietly outside the Richardson boardroom. A contractor does not accidentally get that close to the chief executive twice. Ava heard every word. She entered without raising her voice. Then perhaps you should stop discussing my life in hallways. The conversation died instantly. That evening, Richardson Hospitality hosted a private reception for investors at the Lakeshore Grand. Ava had asked Ryan not to attend, but an electrical failure in the West Conference wing required his crew. Mrs. Parker was unavailable, So Emily sat near the service desk with colored pencils while Ryan worked. He wanted only to finish and leave. Then Charles Whitmore, a senior board member with 30 years of polished manners and carefully hidden arrogance, stepped into his path. Mitchell. Ryan stopped. Sir. Charles glanced at Ryan's work shirt. Interesting week for you. Busy one, I imagine. Two investors nearby turned to listen. Charles lowered his voice just enough to pretend he was being courteous. Men in your position sometimes mistake access for opportunity. Ryan remained still. I am here to repair the lighting system. Of course you are. Charles smiled. But you should remember that being noticed by Ava Richardson does not change your place. Ryan could have answered. He could have mentioned the gala, the mysterious work order, Richard Cole, or the promise he had carried quietly for years. Instead, he closed his toolbox. Is there anything else? Charles seemed disappointed. No, then have a good evening. Ryan walked toward Emily. Ava had witnessed everything from 20 feet away. Anger rose inside her, but Ryan's expression stopped her. There was no humiliation in it. No defeat. Only restraint. He helped Emily into her coat and took her hand. We are going home, kiddo. Emily looked toward Ava, then toward Charles. Daddy. Yes. Why did you not tell him he was wrong? Ryan crouched until they were eye level. Because respect is not something you win by making another person feel small. Emily considered this. Even when they are mean. Especially then. They started toward the elevator. Emily suddenly turned back. Her small voice carried farther than anyone expected. Daddy says good people do not have to prove they are good. No one laughed. Charles looked away. Ava did not. The elevator doors closed behind Ryan and Emily, leaving a strange stillness in the marble lobby. Later that night, Ava sat alone in her office with her father's compass beside the service ticket. Daniel entered carrying an archival storage box. You asked me to search Richard's private records. Ava looked up. You found something? Daniel placed a yellowed envelope on her desk. No mailing address. No stamp. Only 2 words written in her father's unmistakable handwriting. For Ryan. Ava stared at it. Was it opened? Never. She turned the envelope over. On the back was the same pine tree symbol. Beneath it, one sentence had been written in smaller letters. Give this to him only when Ava learns the difference between being protected and being controlled. Ava felt the room go quiet around her. Her father had not merely known Ryan. He had expected Ryan to become part of her life. And somehow, 8 years before she ever fell into his arms, Richard Richardson had been waiting for this exact moment. Ava did not sleep much that night. By 7 the next morning, the unopened envelope was inside her purse, and her father's silver compass rested in her coat pocket. She could have summoned Ryan to headquarters. She could have sent Daniel. Instead, she drove herself to the northwest side, parked 3 blocks from Ryan's apartment, and followed the address Daniel had given her. She found him outside a narrow brick duplex with a toolbox open beside an aging furnace unit. An elderly woman stood nearby wrapped in a blue cardigan. Ryan, I told you I can pay next Friday. Mrs. Alvarez, you also told me your bedroom was 48 degrees last night. That does not make you a charity. Ryan smiled. Good. Because I am terrible at fundraising. Ava stopped beneath a bare maple tree and watched him replace a worn electrical component, test the thermostat, then refuse the folded bills Mrs. Alvarez tried pressing into his hand. Buy groceries, he said. Ryan. Heat first. Pride later. Mrs. Alvarez shook her head, but her eyes softened. Only then did Ryan notice Ava. You are a long way from the 46th floor. I wanted to see you somewhere nobody calls me Ms. Richardson. Ryan closed his toolbox. Around here they might call you the woman blocking the sidewalk. Ava laughed. It came easily, which surprised her. 20 minutes later, she sat at Ryan's small kitchen table while Emily carefully placed 3 mismatched plates beside a grocery store birthday cake. It is not my birthday until Saturday, Emily explained, but Dad works Saturday night, so we are practicing. Ryan pointed at her. That is classified information. Ava looked around. Family photographs covered the refrigerator. A school calendar hung beside overdue utility notices. Nothing matched, nothing glittered, and somehow the room felt warmer than her penthouse ever had. You gave Mrs. Alvarez your labor for free, Ava said. Ryan poured coffee. She taught Emily how to ride a bike. That is your business model? It is not a very profitable one. Emily leaned toward Ava. Daddy used to make more money. Ryan became still. Ava noticed. Emily. What? You did. The child returned to decorating the cake. Ava waited until Emily went to find candles. What did she mean? Ryan looked into his coffee. Before Emily was born, I worked in commercial electrical engineering. Design, infrastructure, large development projects. Why did you leave? Her mother died when Emily was 11 months old. His voice remained steady, but quieter. The company offered me a promotion that required almost 200 days of travel a year. More money, better title, bigger future. And you refused. Emily had already lost one parent. I was not going to make her grow up waiting for the other one to come home. Ava looked at him differently then. The executives who mocked Ryan measured success by floors climbed, salaries earned, names printed on doors. Ryan had once been offered that staircase and simply chosen his daughter instead. Ava reached into her purse and placed the yellowed envelope on the table. Ryan recognized the handwriting immediately. Where did you find this? My father's private archive. Ryan did not touch it. What does the back say? Ava told him. Something changed in his face. Not surprise. Recognition. Ryan, what did my father ask you to protect? He looked toward the hallway where Emily was humming to herself. Then he finally picked up the envelope. Richard once told me that powerful people often confuse protection with control. He made me promise that if his daughter ever became surrounded by people who valued her position more than her peace, I would not help them decide her life for her. Ava swallowed. But you did not know me. No, then why promise? Ryan turned the compass over in her palm and pressed gently on the pine tree engraving. A hidden latch clicked. The back opened. Inside, beneath the metal cover, were 4 tiny engraved numbers. Ava stared at them. What are those? Ryan handed the compass back. Your father said you would know when you were ready. Ava read the numbers again. Then her breath caught. They were not random. They formed a date. Her 18th birthday. And suddenly Ava remembered the one place her father had taken her that morning, before the board meetings, before the inheritance, before her life became something everyone else wanted to manage. The date led Ava to a place she had not visited in 10 years. 2 hours later, she and Ryan stood outside a small brick community center on Chicago's South Side, its faded green doors tucked between a laundromat and an old neighborhood bakery. My father brought me here on my 18th birthday, Ava said. No party, no photographers, just breakfast and this place. Ryan looked at the building. This is where I met Richard Cole. Ava turned toward him. For a moment, neither spoke. Inside, the hallway smelled faintly of coffee, old wood, and floor wax. Ava remembered her father walking beside her, carrying his battered thermos instead of a briefcase. He had shown her classrooms, a workshop, a kitchen where volunteers served families on weekends. At the time, she had wondered why a billionaire cared so much about a building nobody important seemed to know existed. Now she understood the question had been wrong. Ryan stopped beside a row of old storage lockers. Your father kept one here. Ava checked the compass again. Her birthday formed 4 numbers. Locker 418. Ryan found it near the end of the hall. Ava entered the numbers into the small mechanical lock. Click. Inside sat a wooden box and a photograph. Ava picked up the photograph first. Her father stood beside a younger Ryan, both wearing work clothes, smiling beneath the same pine tree symbol painted on the community center wall. You really knew him. I told you I did. You did not tell me you were close. Ryan lowered his eyes. Some promises belong to the person who made them. Ava opened the wooden box. Inside were old project plans for affordable housing developments, scholarship records, and handwritten notes bearing her father's name. No secret fortune. No hidden company. Something quieter. Richard Richardson had anonymously funded repairs, training programs, and apprenticeships throughout Chicago for years. Ryan's name appeared on one scholarship document. Ava looked at him. He paid for your engineering certification. Part of it. Why did you never tell me? Because he made me promise not to turn his kindness into a credential. Ava closed her eyes briefly. Her father had spent his public life surrounded by wealth while quietly measuring people by something else entirely. Her phone rang. Daniel. Ava answered. What happened? His voice was tense. The board knows you are with Ryan. Charles called an emergency session. The Harbor Crown acquisition vote is tomorrow morning, and several directors are threatening to block it unless you publicly distance yourself from him. Ava stared at Ryan. Distance myself? They believe the publicity creates governance concerns. Ryan heard enough. His expression changed. Ava, Go handle your company. She ended the call. Do not do that. Do what? Decide for me. Ryan shook his head. I am not deciding for you. I am deciding for Emily and me. Ava went still. What does that mean? Ryan looked toward the old photograph. My daughter finally has peace. She has spent years learning that people can leave and life can still be safe. I will not teach her that love means watching someone you care about lose everything because you stayed. Ava's voice softened. You think leaving protects me? No, I think it protects her. That answer hurt because it was not selfish. Ryan placed the photograph back inside the box. Ava wanted to argue, but dignity sometimes meant respecting a choice that broke your heart. He walked toward the door. Ryan. He stopped. Was I the right person? He looked back. You asked the right question. Which one? Whether your father was protecting you or controlling you. Ryan gave her a quiet, sad smile. Tomorrow, you get to answer it for yourself. Then he left. Ava remained beside locker 418, listening to his footsteps fade. Only after the door closed did she notice one final envelope beneath the project plans. On the front, her father had written her name. Under it were 6 words, when everyone tells you what to choose. Ava opened the envelope. Inside was a single key and one handwritten sentence. She read it twice, then a third time, and for the first time since inheriting Richardson Hospitality, Ava understood that tomorrow's board vote was never really about a billion-dollar acquisition. It was about whether she still owned her own life. At 9 the next morning, Ava walked into the Richardson Hospitality boardroom carrying nothing but her father's silver compass, the old envelope, and the small brass key he had left behind. 12 directors waited around a walnut table overlooking downtown Chicago. Charles Whitmore sat nearest the head, his expression calm enough to suggest the decision had already been made. Ava, he said, we should begin. She took her seat. Then begin. Charles folded his hands. The Harbor Crown acquisition is valued at $1.8 billion. Our partners require stability, and recent publicity has raised concerns about your judgment. Another director cleared his throat. No one is questioning your private life. Ava looked at him. You called an emergency meeting about my private life. Silence. Charles leaned forward. This is about protecting the company your father built. Ava placed the compass on the table. My father seems to be doing a great deal of protecting lately. Several directors exchanged glances. Charles did not. Ryan Mitchell has become a distraction. Ryan Mitchell repaired your buildings before any of you knew his name. That is precisely the point, Charles replied. He is a maintenance contractor who forgot his place. Ava became completely still. She remembered Ryan kneeling beside Mrs. Alvarez's furnace, Emily decorating a grocery store cake, her father standing in an old community center beside a young electrician who had accepted kindness without turning it into leverage. What exactly makes his place lower than yours? Charles blinked. Nobody answered. Ava waited. The heating system whispered through the ceiling. Somewhere beyond the glass, a siren faded into the morning traffic. His salary? She asked. His address? His work shirt? Tell me which number determines dignity. Charles shifted in his chair. This emotional argument is beneath you. No, Ava said quietly. Thinking another human being is beneath me would be beneath me. The room went silent. Charles opened the acquisition folder. If you refuse to issue a statement distancing yourself from Mitchell, several directors will vote against Harbor Crown. Then vote against it. That changed the room. Ava, someone whispered. That deal took 14 months. Then we spent 14 months learning what it costs. Charles stared at her. Your father would never risk this company for a contractor. Ava reached into her pocket and placed the brass key beside the compass. You keep speaking for my father. Her eyes settled on him. I think that ends today. Daniel, standing near the door, stepped forward with a document Ava had requested before sunrise. The key from Richard's envelope had opened a private safe deposit box registered through the Community Center Trust. Inside was not money, but the original charter of a foundation Richard had quietly established years earlier, along with voting provisions tied to his controlling shares. Ava had spent the morning with company counsel confirming what those provisions meant. My father transferred a protected voting block into the Richardson Community Trust before he died, Ava said. Charles's confidence finally cracked. That trust was never activated, because its successor trustee had never accepted the appointment. Ava slid the document across the table. Until this morning. Charles looked down. Ava's signature appeared beneath the acceptance clause. Her father had not left her a weapon against the board. He had left her independence from it. The acquisition is suspended, Ava continued. An independent governance review begins today. No employee or contractor will be judged by social status, and nobody in this company will use my father's name to justify disrespect again. No applause followed. None was needed. Ava stood, took the compass, and walked toward the door. Daniel followed her into the hallway. Where are you going? Ava looked toward the elevators. For the first time in years, she was not asking what the board expected, what investors preferred, or what headlines might say. To make one decision that belongs only to me. Behind her, 12 powerful people remained completely silent. 3 hours later, Ava parked on Ryan Street without a driver, an assistant, or anyone waiting to open her door. Chicago had turned gray with late afternoon clouds, and a cool wind pushed dry leaves along the sidewalk. She found Ryan outside the duplex, kneeling beside Emily's blue bicycle with a wrench in one hand and grease across 2 fingers. Emily noticed her first. Ava. Ryan looked up. He did not smile, but he did not look away. You should be at work. I was. How did the vote go? There was no vote. Ryan slowly stood. Why? Ava walked closer. Because I finally understood what you were trying to tell me. Emily looked between them. Is this grown-up talking? Very grown-up, Ryan said. Can I go inside? Please. Emily disappeared through the front door, leaving them beneath the quiet rustle of the maple tree. Ava took her father's compass from her pocket. I spent most of my life believing strength meant never needing anyone. Then I spent the last few years surrounded by people who called control protection because it sounded kinder. Ryan wiped his hands on a shop towel. And now I know the difference. He studied her face. Ava, I meant what I said. Emily comes first. She should. And I will not let my life become a battlefield between you and your board. It will not. You cannot promise that. No, Ava stepped closer. But I can promise I will never ask you to become smaller so other people can feel comfortable with me choosing you. Ryan's expression softened, but he remained silent. Ava smiled faintly. The first time I held on to you, I was afraid of hitting the floor. A gust moved a strand of blonde hair across her cheek. This time I am standing perfectly well. Ryan almost smiled. I noticed. And I am still asking you to stay. For several seconds, the neighborhood seemed to quiet around them. No chandeliers. No investors. No cameras. Just 2 people standing beside a child's half-repaired bicycle. Ryan finally held out his hand. Ava looked down at it, then placed hers inside. I was not planning to disappear forever, he said. You had an unusual way of showing it. I needed you to choose your own life before I became part of it. Ava's eyes warmed. Then maybe we start slowly. Slowly sounds good. The front door opened. Emily peeked outside. Does slowly include pizza? Ryan laughed. Apparently it does. Ava started toward the steps, but the compass slipped from her hand and landed softly in the grass. Emily picked it up. Wait. She pressed the hidden latch Ryan had shown Ava. The back opened again. But this time, Emily noticed something neither adult had seen. There is paper under here. Ryan frowned. Paper. Beneath the engraved birthday date was a second, thinner compartment. Ava carefully lifted the metal insert and removed a tiny folded note. Her father's handwriting covered only 3 lines. Ava read them silently, and tears gathered in her eyes. What does it say? Ryan asked. She handed it to him. Richard had written that years earlier, Ryan had refused a permanent engineering position at Richardson Hospitality because accepting it would have meant breaking the promise he had made to his infant daughter. Richard had never forgotten that choice. The final line made Ryan stop breathing for a moment. If Ava ever meets you, do not rescue her from her life. Remind her that she is allowed to choose one. Ava looked at Ryan. He knew. Ryan shook his head slowly. He hoped. Emily leaned against her father. Then Ava noticed the date beneath Richard's signature. It was written 8 years ago, 3 days before his death. But below, it was one final notation. Ballroom West Electrical Panel, 46th floor. Ryan stared at the words. Ava did too. The mysterious service ticket had not been written by someone imitating her father after all. Richard had prepared the instruction 8 years earlier, leaving it sealed with the building's long-term maintenance records to be delivered when the ballroom renovation was finally completed. He had never known exactly when that would happen. He had only trusted that someday 2 lives might cross again. Ryan folded the note carefully. Ava took his hand once more. And this time, when she held on, neither of them was falling.